as regards the force readiness is concerned, or to ask a very simple question, are we prepared? On most people, when they discuss of 2.5 front war, readiness is subjective. Are we in the international sphere looking at conventional war? The answer would be probably no. There is, as I look at it, no possibility of a conventional war, at least for the next 2 decades, if one sees it clearly. Now, what is it when we are asking and looking at it at all times, what is the kind of threat assessment, what is the kind of force readiness that is required? Let me also go back, and you'll realize in history also, there were times when you could well be prepared and still not make it. You would still not be prepared, and you would still be able to be where you want to be. India, in my perception, when people talk about preparation, we have our constraints. And within those constraints, we have to operate, whether we like it or we don't like it. Now, what exactly would readiness be? Whatever task I've been given, with whatever I've been equipped, how best do I perform? If that be what readiness is all about, then there would be virtually impossible for any country in the world to be ready at all times. Not possible. United States, $600 billion being spent on defense, and almost the same amount on internal security. China, $200 billion spent on defense, and a little more maybe on internal security. India, $50 billion being spent on defense, and approximately about $8 to $10 billion being spent on internal security. If you look at it, that's the kind of money which Pakistan spends on its defense, $8 to $10 billion. The kind of money that now, after all these things that have taken place, we spend, our pension bill is almost $8 billion. So, and we are a rising economy, it takes time for us, we are a democracy, vibrant, all kinds of frictions that take place in a democracy. We are absolutely open. The way we all are talking, I don't think our two adversaries, if you go to China, they would ever be talking like this, the way we talk so openly. If you go to Pakistan, it's virtually, it's a state which is run by the army. Now, I can just quote 1 or 2 examples. As a child, probably 1963, we were all part of the Indian embassy there and thrown out from there and been told to leave Pakistan in 96 hours. And then we had the 65 war. And if you look at China, when you go there, you hardly have anybody dissenting on openly on any issue. They're all with this thing. Over here, I think the number of people that we are, each one of us would have an opinion, and we might well say India first. At the end of it, he'll say, yeah, I mean India first only, but my way. It's only my way that it goes the India first way, and not what is the consensus obtained, and we say, well, this is India first, this is what we want, and this is what will happen. It doesn't happen that way. But notwithstanding the thing that we have to see that if we have to have credible deterrence, or I would put it credible dissuasive deterrence against China, and we need to have punitive deterrence against Pakistan, then we need to have a certain mathematical preparation for it, and to ensure that we at least come up, not over do it, but just about be able to do it. Now, what are the constraints that we have if we are spelled for ourselves that we must have a credible dissuasive deterrence against China, we need to have a punitive deterrence against Pakistan, and what is it going on? And now all the previous speakers talking about Pakistan almost being a surrogate state of China and taking care and keeping India at bay, and North Korea being propped up by China to take care of the United States and Japan. We're talking about Japan, you'll be surprised. I spent about a year there, and that time it was a Japanese defense agency. Now they have a Japanese defense ministry. $50 billion they've been spending, 1% of the GDP on defense. And what is the kind of defense that they have? 1.82 lakhs is what they've been constitutionally granted to have army, self-defense. They have about 1.52 lakhs. That's all. Navy, about 47,000 with 145 ships Navy. And Air Force, about 50,000 and about 700 aircraft. Budget, $50 billion. And I said the army is just about 1.5 lakhs. And we have a 1.2 million army. The defense budget is the same. So we have, from whatever the budget that comes to us, 85% goes in payment of salaries, and the balance of it is left out for maintaining the equipment that we have. So the capital is very minimal. The Air Force and the Navy are still about a little better than the Army is concerned, because they are able to have 60-40, 60 revenue, 40 capital. Both Navy and the Air Force manage to have it. But the Army is absolutely 85-15. That's the state that we are all in. And in that 15 also, it is very difficult to spend all of it for procurement and capital procurement and the procedures that we have. And so you'll be going into the DPP 2016 have allowed us a little bit of a leverage of improving, a lot of pressure being built on the PSUs, built on modern factories and the indigenous industries to be developed so that we cope up. But how are we going to go up? If you look at the Air Force, we are always talking about that we must have a 42 modern Air Force, get down to 34. And it might further go down with the deals having been struck, a lot of opposition to all that. Hopefully, maybe Tejas being introduced, we have another 140 aircraft, so hopefully the things are moving. We are not, in any case, we are capability building Air Force that we have. The Navy also, we are looking at it having a 200 ship Navy. We are tagging around 140 odd, and the biggest advantage that the Navy has vis-a-vis the other, they're indigenous. And since they are indigenous, a lot of their submarines and even their aircraft carriers being refitted within the country, and even the third one that they're looking at, which may not, I don't know. I hope it comes through, because at least the sea are required to ensure that everything is in place. How do we go about it? And then, of course, the guns that we're looking at, the RT guns, we're looking at 3,000 over a period of time to be able to develop. The infantry is looking for assault rifle, carbine, LMG, some bulletproof jackets, helmets, a whole lot of things that are being asked for. There's never an end. And we will have our wish list, which is very, very long, and necessary also to have a wish list. But how do we go about it? Because after all, we find today we have the 1.52% of the GDP, and that's just almost the lowest that we've ever had. So even if we expect it, of course, we are a $2 trillion economy, so when we talk about 1.52%, in numbers it may be large, but in percentage-wise it's really very small. And as I said, Japan has been spending 1%, and that 1% translates to $50 billion on a defense, which is self-defense force, which is so small. And that is where the deterrence is. Even though it is small, it deters China from even looking that side, because they know. And that is surprisingly, whether it is South Korea, whether it is Japan, or it's America, it's trade. It's all trade. It's nothing but trade. So one of the options that I can suggest is that we must have proper alliances, things in place with America or all countries the world over. And of course, economically, we must be able to interact with China in a very big way, because having a trade which is about $50 to $60 billion, most of it in their favor, and very little with us. And then we are keeping, I remember during the NDC, there was an officer, a Chinese officer, though from Singapore. He would always be talking to us and he would say, look, and he had picked up Hindi and he was doing yoga and all that kind of thing. He would tell us a number of times, look, we have all been brainwashed by the Indians, Buddhism all the way. A lot of, now we don't call ourselves atheists any longer. We all follow it. And he was right in a way, because every time in a border personnel meeting I would meet the Chinese, and most of these people would be around, would be asking for agarbatti. Can you imagine what they would be asking for? Agarbatti. They would ask for cigarettes, agarbatti, probably a bottle of rum or something like that. And I would be surprised, why agarbatti of all the things? So, in their own personal life, they were all followers, and they would be very happy interacting with us, because Buddhism had, to a large extent, is there, prevalent in China even today. And we talk about Taiwan and China, you find the cross-strait marriages that take place, almost about 5 lakhs. The kind of tourism that takes place between Taiwan and China, between South Korea and China. We don't even have that many tourists coming to India from the world. So that's the kind of, they may talk whatever it is, but ultimately the officer would keep telling us, Rokda rakho. I didn't realize it when he said the word Rokda, and I said, how come he knows? He says, yeah, we Indians, and it was very nice. He said, you'd all be talking from a very high pedestal, but ultimately in life what matters is keep the cash on the table and then let's talk whatever we wish to. So just on the lighter side, but notwithstanding that, as regards the assessment of our force readiness is concerned, I think we hold exercises and definitely ready. I'm not saying for a full-scale war, which is not likely to be, but wherever it's a smaller context, whether it's an issue like Doklam, where if we were in a position of strength, all along, the Chinese knew, all along from day one, they knew that the Indians are in a position of strength. But well, that's the way Sun Tzu has been teaching them. We can subjugate the enemy without firing a bullet, so be it. But of course, we also are Chanakya Niti, we are not going to get cowed down so easily. But yes, pressures will be there, and the pressures can be withstood. We are fully geared as regards the pressures on the borders are concerned. We need not necessarily be heavily armed and equipped and things like that. Yes, space is one agency, your cyber is another agency, the special forces another. Wherever small little ability to be able to create so that we withstand and stand up to China is very essential. Thank you.